thought about what Christmas really, really means to you? Have you ever just sat down and thought about it? We grow up as kids and we have things that happen and we have ideas about Christmas, and a lot of times we just carry that with us. Have you paused to think about what it means? Is it a time of fondly recalling the traditions of Christmas? Or is it just another day? Or do you celebrate Hanukkah instead, or maybe in addition to Christmas? Some of us, I know, celebrate both. Is it a spiritual time, or is it a material time? Are the holidays a time of pain and loneliness, or a time of joy, celebration, and light? It can be all of those things, can it? For all of us, either at the same time, we may have a mixture of those emotions, or maybe we just go into one of those places and it's all about the light and the celebration, or it's all a very sad time for us. It just depends. And we're going to explore some of this month in our series. We are looking at Charles Dickens' book, A Christmas Carol. That's what we're basing our talks on this month. And who's not heard of Ebenezer Scrooge? Bah humbug. Or Tiny Tim and his wonderful blessing for all. Dickens wrote this in 1843. 177 years. There's something in this story that is in the human psyche or condition that it resonates with us. There's been a ton of movies and plays and everything from animation, the Muppets and Disney and Donald Duck and black and white and color. And I just saw something's come out again this year, another one. Is it Jim Carrey that's doing that one? So there's been a lot of interpretations. There's an opera, there's a ballet. It's out there, isn't it? It's part of us, 177 years worth. And bear in mind, how many have read the book? Many of us have never read the book. A lot of us have just seen the shows. And we know Hollywood takes creative license, right? So I'm reading the book and going through the details of the book and comparing some of those to the TV shows or the movies. And they are a little bit different in some of the things that they've done. But we're going to be looking at the spiritual meanings in this story during the month and looking at the ghosts of Christmas past, of Christmas present, and Christmas future. And we're looking at the idea of salvation, or what we might call in New Thought, transformation, right? The opportunity of transformation. So our series all month long is Peace on Earth, Goodwill to All. And we know that came from the Bible story in Luke about the birth of Jesus and the angels talking to the shepherds, peace on earth, goodwill to all. And so we're using that as the theme, and then closing out the month with our World Peace Meditation on the 31st. And so this is a season of peace. It's a season of light. It's a season of joy. And it's a season of healing. Today my talk is Scrooge, Marley, and the ghosts of the past. Yay. Are we ready? All right, let's get going. Let's get with it. So our story begins. I'm going to tell you the story of the first section of the book. It begins with us getting to know about our star, Ebenezer Scrooge. He's miserly, tight-fisted, unkind, a businessman. He prides himself on being, I'm a businessman, right? We also meet his kind and loving nephew, Fred. Fred is just full of the Christmas spirit. He ice skates on the road with the kids. He's just happy. He's come to invite his uncle to please come have holiday dinner with us, and bah humbug, go away. And then we also meet his loyal yet mistreated clerk, Bob Cratchit, right? We meet the Cratchits. And we see these jovial, merry, Christmasing characters on the one hand, illuminating the bah humbugginess, if you will, of Scrooge. It just really accentuates how negative he is, particularly at this time of year. And we find out in the beginning that Scrooge's business partner, his former business partner, Jacob Marley, is dead. He's really, really dead. Some 7 years ago dead, as they say in the book. And it's important that we know that he's dead, like really dead, because Marley's ghost comes back to visit Scrooge on Christmas Eve. Marley's ghost comes back. And Marley has been doomed to walk the earth as a ghost, carrying the chains that he made during his lifetime through his greed and his selfishness and his ignoring the needs of his fellow human beings. And he's come to warn Scrooge that unless he changes his ways, he too will deal with this same fate, only with worse chains, because he's kind of implying Scrooge might be worse than Marley was. But Scrooge has to listen, and the only way, Marley tells him, he says, you're going to be visited by 3 more ghosts. Scrooge is like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can stand more than just you, Marley. He goes, nope, you got 3 more coming, and they're going to talk to you about the past, the present, and the future. And you've got to listen. You've got to listen. It's your only chance to save yourself. The only chance to save yourself. And it's interesting in this story to recognize time as a factor. If you think about it, we're looking at past, present, and future time. There's clocks and bells that are in a lot of this book and this movie. And Scrooge is older. His partner Marley's already died. Right? So we have a sense of timeliness there. And that Scrooge just doesn't have a lot of time left to change his life. So the ghost of the future is actually the ghost of the yet to come. Okay? It's the ghost of the yet to come. And I think Hollywood may have taken license with this idea of ghost of the future, but if you think about the story, the whole point of the story is the future's not cast. This is the potential of the future. And that is the theme of the story, and it's also what we teach in Science of Mind, isn't it? That our future is not something that's cast in stone, that we have the opportunity to change our thinking and to affect the future outcome that we experience. So I like how those two go together. So Scrooge is a little shaken after Marley's visit. Can you imagine? Yeah, a little shaken. So he goes to bed. Only to be awakened by the ghost, right? The ghost of Christmas past. Now, in the book it says the strangest thing about the ghost was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, and it had a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. You can sort of see it peeking out behind the Christmas tree there. This is the Disney version. This is a candle, and he's holding the candle snuffer. And I thought that's the only picture I could find that sort of gave us what that was. But you can imagine this bright illumination in his bedchamber waking him up. The illuminated spirit then takes Scrooge and flies him out the window and takes him back to his boyhood, to boarding school. And it's Christmas time. And all of the boys are leaving and going home, and they're waving and excited to be going home for the holidays. But not Scrooge. He's standing on the porch waving goodbye and goes back inside and sheds a tear because he can't go home. His father won't let him come home. He's told him, you stay at boarding school, you study harder. So he's lonely, he's there all by himself, and it's a lonely time for him. And then the next year comes, and we see his little sister, Fanny, come to school, and she's so excited. She loves her brother so much. And she says, Father has changed. Come home. Home is like heaven now. Father has changed. Come home. He wants you to come home. You can go to work. You don't ever have to come back to this school ever again. Come home. He sent a carriage. And Scrooge is smiling at this memory. And he continues to smile as the ghost takes him into the next vignette, which is Mr. Wizzywig. Was that how it is? Fezziwig, Mr. Fezziwig. And it's the Christmas party. This is the place where he worked as a young man. And this Mr. Fezziwig treated him like a son. He not only entertained them with holiday parties, he paid them fair wages, and he joyfully gave them the day after Christmas Day and so forth off with pay. Well, Scrooge kind of frowns a little bit at this, and the ghost asks, what's going on? And he said, well, I was just kind of thinking about Bob Cratchit. And you know how badly he treated Bob, and he's feeling a little bit of guilt maybe, right? That he's not paying forward in his life that kindness that he was shown by Fezziwig. The next memory that the spirit shows Scrooge is of his neglected fiancée, Belle, as she's breaking up with him. And she's explaining to Scrooge that you will never love me as much as you love money. And he doesn't deny this. As he also doesn't deny when she says, and I don't think today that you would pursue me as your bride because I don't have a suitable dowry. He did not deny that either. Well, then they move to the final scene, and it's Belle's home today. And her happy family with lots and lots of kids, and it's Christmas time, and her husband comes home, and he says, I saw a friend of yours today. I saw Scrooge. And she said, oh, really? What was he doing? He says, well, he was in his shop still and working under one little old candle and kind of bent over the desk. And they laughed about his miserly ways and how unhappy he was. And that broke Scrooge's heart. That broke Scrooge's heart. And he insisted that the ghost take him away from that house immediately. Take me away immediately. And he got so upset that he snatched the cap and he snuffed out the light. He couldn't take any more. He snuffed out the light and the ghost went away. So Scrooge is feeling that unbearable regret. That place when we look back on those memories and we're just heartbroken over what could have been on a decision we wish we'd have made differently. And we fall into that memory and that pain. We all reflect on that past at some point. And maybe it's the good times that we're reflecting on. Maybe it's the challenging times we're reflecting on. The holidays can trigger memories for us, can't they? When we were decorating the tree here last week, I had one such memory triggered. It was kind of a fascinating thing that, of course, plays right into this today, so I'm going to share it with you. We got here and we're putting the tree together and we got it all up, and everybody, the team had a plan for how they were going to decorate the tree. They had a plan, and I kind of wove to the back of the room and sat down and just watched. And it was so wonderful to sit back and just observe the decorating and the way they were doing it and the way they were working together and how much fun they were having doing it. And I was struck by a memory of my childhood growing up. And when we would decorate our tree, Dad, we always cut down a tree, and he would bring that in and they'd get it set up, and then he'd go sit down in the chair and bark orders at us. Move this, more tinsel, do this, do that, right? And I remember as a child always resenting that, and how he just sat back there and barked orders, right? Sitting back there for the first time in my life, observing the decorating and not doing it, I had a changed perspective. My perspective was the joy that he must have felt to sit there and observe his wife and his children decorating the Christmas tree and seeing that come together and seeing us work together. You see, Christmas was his favorite holiday. And I remember him sitting in the living room with the lights off and just the Christmas lights on and just looking at the tree for long periods of time. Christmas was his favorite holiday. And when he was in the last stages of his cancer, and he stayed rallied for Christmas, and he passed the first week of January. But he rallied for Christmas. He wanted to be there for one last Christmas. So it was such an important holiday for him, and that whole thing just shifted for me from so long ago to last week. From last week. So as we look at the messages today of the ghost of the past in our lives, the question for us is, how are these memories influencing our life and our choices today? For me, that before last week, 2 years ago, this impacted my life. When Ron and I first got together and we're doing our first Christmas together, sat the tree up and he leaves. And I'm like, another one, right? Another one. Yeah. So all of that stuff came up again for me 2 years ago. And so this is it has healed this for me as well, to recognize that we all experience this differently. That was my stuff. So how are the memories influencing your life today from your childhood? Are we allowing the memories of past grievances and hurts and fears and old beliefs to haunt our holidays today? The quality of our lives, the quality of our relationships. Ernest Holmes, founder of Centers for Spiritual Living and the author of The Science of Mind, he says that thoughts today are dropped by our conscious mind into subjective mind, tomorrow becoming a memory. And that's what happened to me, right? Those were conscious thoughts that I had as a child that I plugged into my subjective memory and that I then carried with me for 50 years. Memory is an unconscious operation of what was once a conscious thought. By changing our thought, we can mold our affairs, and by right thinking, we can bring new conditions into our life. So Holmes is telling us that we don't have to be negatively influenced by our past memories. They're going to come up, but what we do with them is our choice in that moment, right? The choice today. If they're not pleasant experiences, we can choose new thoughts about them. And sometimes it is a process of awakening like mine. It might take a few years. 40 or 50, right? Yeah. I know that many of our experiences are much more serious, much more horrific maybe than what I shared, my experience. And it breaks my heart that anybody has to live through something like that. And we know that we can not give those experiences power over us in our lives. We can choose to heal it. We can choose to do the work, get whatever support that we need to heal our relationship with those thoughts. Because really that's what it is. You know, it wasn't the relationship with my father as much as it was my relationship with those thoughts that I had as a child that were what was eating me. It was my thinking that was, right? It wasn't anything he did. It's what I interpreted it to be. So work with your practitioner. Do whatever you need to do to get help to work yourself through the stuff, through the thoughts. Look at the ghosts of the past and change like Scrooge. One of my favorite Science of Mind quotes. Because we fail to realize that principle is not bound by precedent, we limit our faith to that which has already been accomplished. Right? This is that law of infinite possibilities that we live in, that we're surrounded by. And it runs on faith, and it runs on our faith. What do we believe? Principle not bound by precedent. I believe in miracles. Anybody else? Oh yeah. I've seen so many this year. So Scrooge was trapped in his current state of believing that being miserly and unkind and all of the things that he believed that was the right way, didn't he? Because he wouldn't have been there if he didn't. He believed that was the right thinking. He believed that was how life was because that's what he had known for so long in his life. But the Science of Mind tells us that change is possible. And our teaching provides us many tools that help us do that. And of course, the other thing that we teach is this idea of healing and the healing power that we have within us to heal ourselves and to help others to heal. And our foundational teaching of that in the tool is, of course, our affirmative prayer treatment, isn't it? Our affirmative prayer treatment, the way that we teach prayer. Ernest suggests for healing of memories. He has a whole section on this in the textbook. When treating, do not consider the facts. Facts are relative. The facts that I had in 1960 whatever were relative based on 2020, right? They're different. They're different. Nothing changed about what happened. What changed was how I'm thinking about it. So that's the relativity part of it that he's talking about. The treatment must be absolute. I wish to get it over into mind as a complete acceptance, not of the old fact, but of the new fact. Not of the old fact, but of the new fact. That's a real important distinction, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in focusing on the problem. When we're treating for a broken bone, it's not about healing that broken bone. That's none of our business, is it? What is our business is to know the bone as whole, to know the bone as healed, to get it over in as an accomplished fact. How it happens, it doesn't matter. That's up to powers that be, right? That's up to spirit. How it happens. We may think we know how it happens, but do you really know how it happens? Do you really know how long it's going to take? Do some people heal faster than other people? Do some people never heal? Yeah, all of this stuff, none of our business. Our business is to get it over into mind as an accomplished fact, that we see it in our mind. We know it as a complete whole bone, right? Because when we focus on the broken bone, and do you know how it broke? I heard it how it broke, and here's my x-rays, and you know how long it's going to take, and my sling, and isn't it pretty? And look at my We focus on all that, it keeps us in that, doesn't it? Yeah. We focus on the other side. We go to the other place. We turn away from the condition. We focus on the healing. Today we visited the past life of Mr. Scrooge. We kind of begin to see where things begin to go off track a little bit for him in the past. What memory are we carrying that represents Marley's chains? Because, he was a ghost and carrying chains in ghost life. We carry chains in this life, don't we? We may call it baggage. We may call it chains. We carry that stuff. What memory haunts your holidays? If you remember last month, our kindness challenge, we talked about how holding on to bitterness and unforgiveness could cause us to be unkind. Isn't this a great segue, going from kindness to, let's look at Scrooge, one of the most unkind representative on the planet, right? It's a wonderful segue, if you will, into this, to look at how he was bitter and how he was unkind. So any bitterness or unkindness that we're holding on to these holidays, we can let go of too. We can do our work and let go of that to be the light and illuminate your life through that light. So let's wrap up this morning with our spiritual practices and see how we might be able to release some of these ghosts of our past. If you are not signed up yet for Mindful Monday, you can do so in the lobby if you're here in the room. If you're online, you can send us an email and we'll add you to the list, and you'll get a weekly email from me on Monday mornings that just summarizes our talk and gives you the spiritual practices in more detail for the week. So number 1 is memory and right thinking. When we find memories are no longer serving our higher good, my father was barking orders, right? It's possible to change our thinking and change our life. We can use our meditation practice. We can use journaling. Call your practitioner. Work through any memories that may be haunting you, particularly if they're triggered during this holiday season. You heard Daniel's offer in the beginning of service after the prayer this morning. You don't have to walk through this stuff alone this season. You've got support in this community, practitioner, minister, each other, to reach out to walk through this if there are chains that you're carrying this year. Number 2 is principle and precedent. No matter what has happened in the past, it does not dictate what is possible for you in the future. provided you change your mind about it. Core tenet of the science of mind. Principles not bound by precedent. We live in this field of infinite possibilities, as infinite as you believe they are. That's the key to it. It's done unto us as we believe. The field of infinite possibilities that we talk about is only as infinite as we believe it is. If we believe it's this big, it's this big. If it's unlimited, it's unlimited. This week, if you find yourself being triggered by a memory, check in with what you believe. See if any of this memory is kind of something that's stuck back in the past, believing that that's just the way it has to be, that principle, because that precedent, because that's the way that it has happened before, that's the way it's always going to be. Because I've spent time with my family and it's always a mess, it's going to be a mess this year. I just know it. Some of us have those beliefs, you know. Some of us have let go of a lot of those beliefs and still have some of those beliefs. So, you know, it's things we work through. It's all a process, right? But we live in this sea of infinite possibilities. And we need to have faith that that's possible. Don't get bound up by the precedents that have been set. Recognize the infinite possibilities available. Number 3, healing, treatment, and the absolute. Ernest defines the absolute as the unconditioned, that which nothing can limit, that which forever transcends any conceivable limitation or determination. Unlimited, unconditioned. This is where we do our prayer treatment work from. This is why we work with a practitioner. They aren't stuck in your limitations, right? They have no idea about the stuckness that I had, the belief that I had about that memory of my father. So they can see beyond that into the absolute. They can see into that to love. They're not stuck in our limitations. They see us from the absolute and they know the truth of us. Our spiritual mind treatment is a powerful spiritual technology. A very powerful spiritual technology. Those of you that have had manifested prayer, you know the power of the prayer. It works. It works. If you're unfamiliar, we have the flyers in the lobby. Gives you explanation, example, and a place for your own spiritual mind treatment. All right. Ebenezer had quite a rough night. Would you agree? Mm-hmm. Couple of ghosts, little flying around, visiting the past, some fun memories, some not so fun memories. Oh my goodness. So, we can make peace with our stories. We don't have to be stuck in them. And we can set a new course for ourselves, for our future, by changing our thinking today. I want to close out this morning with a quote from another holiday movie. Miracle on 34th Street. So I always want to say 32nd Street. Miracle on 34th Street. Kris Kringle said, "Oh, Christmas isn't just a day, it's a frame of mind." So what are you thinking? So it is. Would you join me for an affirmative prayer this morning? Practice this spiritual technology. As we go within, we recognize that there is one life, and that life is God. It is the power, it is the presence, it is the love and the joy. It is this field of infinite possibilities in which we live, move, and have our being. For we are each manifestations of the divine love, of Spirit, of Source, of God, created in the likeness and image of that which is, that creative power, that love. individualized and unique as an expression of it. This is true of me. It's true of each of us in the room, each of us listening online and listening in the future to this prayer. We are all connected. We are all one. We are all unified. We are all whole, perfect, complete. And so knowing this, I speak my word for and about each of us gathered here today, knowing that whatever may haunt us from our past, we recognize in the truth of this story and the truth of our very own being, the opportunity to let it go, to reframe the story, to find the spiritual significance, to find the gift, and to release that, to let it be, to change our thinking, to change and move into that which empowers our future. I bless each one of us here today, knowing that for whatever we may have on our hearts that we are seeking prayer around, as we bring that into our awareness, that whatever needs to be healed is healed, that whatever truth needs to be revealed is revealed clearly and easily. If there is financial flow that needs to occur, that it is flowing generously through multiple channels and with ease and with grace, as we gratefully receive all that is shared. I know loving relationships, peace and wholeness. And how grateful I am for the manifestation of this prayer, for this center, for all who are gathered here in community as we connect during these high holy days. I just release this with great gratitude and joy into the activity of mind, the action of law. And we affirm together by saying, and so it is.